Hey guys, it's Big Bro, and this video I'm going to try to show you how to do a stencil. For this purpose of the video, I've just printed out real quick a Coca-Cola bottle, and it'll be more of a beginner's video and tutorial on how to really know the basics of stenciling, and I'll kind of give you some techniques, and along the way, as I show you them and just kind of explain them all, I'll probably talk a little bit on how I got really into graffiti, stenciling, and why it means so much to me and how it's become such a big part of my life. So first off, before we go on, I'd like to tell you the materials that you're going to need. You're going to need your image. For this purpose, like I said, this is just printed off to the internet. I'd suggest when you start, either find an image that you really like and then turn it into a stencil through what I'll be showing you, or draw out your own stencil from the very start of it, and that might make it quite a bit easier to piece it all together. If you're going to be following this technique though, you're going to need a whiteout and another black Sharpie. And also for the finished product, this one I'll just be showing you the drawings of it, not the actual cutting. But you'll need acetate paper or acetate alternative, and basically what this is this one actually is the overhead projector paper, and it's just like a plasticky kind of material that you lay over it, and it's really good and keeps really nice cuts. And I think you can, it's really hard to find that kind of stuff now, but I think you should be able to find it at Staples or somewhere of the sort. Also, before I continue on, I'd like to show you an update on the black book. Just wanted to show you the front sticker, and just to kind of throw that out there, that is also going on my channel, so if you'd like to trade, then that's open to that. So get right into it, if I can get this cap off. So one of the main guides that I'd tell people is probably the most important thing when stenciling is you always have to keep in mind every single cut and think every single one through. And basically, in an area like this, you're going to want to make sure that this inner part is connected to the outer. And we're going to keep this very much so as how it shows on here, and that we'll be cutting out the black parts and keeping the white. So as you can see, there's nothing that connects this inner white part to this outer, and would therefore come apart from it when it's cut. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over that like this, and just make it so that it's noticeable that it's connected, and then you're also going to want to find another area possibly to strengthen that connection as best possible. And this applies to every single area in stenciling. You're going to want to follow this every single time. And one other rule that I'd like to show while doing this is one that I've called implied edges. And what that is that you can kind of get the idea that this continues on just because of that. So moving on to another parts, kind of want to figure out a way to make sure that everything is not flimsy, but at the same time get the general idea of the shape and everything. Another really good way for beginners to start off is by just doing silhouettes. Those are really a good way to just get techniques like cutting down and just get the idea of how it works, and then move on to simple objects. This one really isn't so much simple, I'd say, but it really is a good way to get started on it all. So as you can see, I'm actually taking out quite a bit of the details and everything right now, but you can add them in later with the black Sharpie, and then you're able to make your own marks and know where you can, as long as you keep it connected. Watching other videos of how to make stencils, you'll hear islands a lot, and I'll explain that now. Basically, in this O here, this is a really good example of an island, because this let me get a pointer. This inner part will have nothing to connect it to the outer. So what stencil artists will either do is they'll create bridges, and what that does is it basically is a connection point in here or something. The better artists will eventually learn to put them in places that are less of a distraction point and can still really show the figure well. So areas that like have already pre-existing lines going through it. So like right here and right here would be really great, and then kind of loop it out so that you still get the idea of it. Let me Sharpie that. That's an important part, is to have your Sharpie ready. That way when you do kind of mess up with the whiteout, that you can always go over it. So if you can kind of get that idea. So I'm pretty much just going to finish up the stencil and then continue talking about how I got into stenciling. Really and truly, I think we've always kind of seen graffiti. Everybody, you know, you look around and you're going to see it no matter what, but everybody that starts with it has one like key point that really brought it about into their artistic talents and into something that they became and started to do. For me, that was when my cousin introduced it to me, and it was a longer time ago, as he's a little bit older than me, so he became fond of it very quickly, as it's just kind of something that, you know, most teenagers are becoming more aware of. So he got a Banksy book that kind of opened up that style for me to see the stenciling, and allowed me to have my first glimpse of what it all was. And from there, I didn't initially start doing it until a little bit later, when I started to look more into the whole graffiti thing, as I became more of... I draw on a regular basis of every other kind of thing, but graffiti was not something I had originally looked at as art. And eventually, as I became kind of bored of traditional art and of just drawing, I was like wanting to find a new style that was something different that not everybody had seen before, and graffiti just fit that perfectly. And further into it, it became important to me, and my stenciling in particular, it was like inspired by Banksy, in that he was the first inspiration for it. I'm not really much of a Banksy fan, though, just because of the fact that he's a little bit more popular now, and that he seems to do it a little bit more for, you know, that side of it. But real quick, for the purpose of this video, I'm gonna actually cut out on this part, because that's really minute and detailed, and my Sharpie's lacking out on me. So Banksy really was the initial icon for stenciling graffiti, as you know, most people do become introduced to it through that. But it became an inspiration that he was able to show a meaning through his art, more so than just the writing style graffiti, where it's, you know, the tagging or writing. You were able to kind of explain a story or explain a meaning behind an image, and it became very powerful in my life to be able to do that. And with older ones of mine, you're able to see that kind of distinctly with sorry, I'm trying to think on also how to piece this all together. Also, real quick, interrupting my story and everything, another thing to do is don't be afraid to add bridges, because afterwards you can always go over with a black Sharpie and cover them once it's actually on the material. And I'll do that for a lot of things, like you know, the guy reaching for the heart-shaped balloon. I'll just add in the string, because it's something that will interrupt a lot of the flow of the acetate paper and will create a huge gap. So, and since it is something that's so minute, I can just add it in afterwards. So continuing on, where was I? Gotta think now. Oh yeah, so the imagery really became key in graffiti for me, and it became a way to communicate. And for me, it was as much figuring out my situation for myself as it was explaining it. And after doing a graffiti, I'd be able to look at it and know what I felt. And that became really tremendously helpful in a lot of my portions of my life. So each one of my graffitis will have, others might look at it and it's not as bold as Banksy's in that it's not immediately noticeable. It's a lot more symbolic. But, sorry if I'm kind of drawing a blanket a couple times. It's hard to think about doing this and then also a tougher subject too. But, it's my stencils all have a special meaning, and to be able to share that with somebody and to put it on a wall and have somebody walk by it and go, that's cool looking, and they might not necessarily know the story behind it, but to have them look at my pretty much emotions and life put on a paper and then look at it and call it beautiful or something became really helpful. And in a couple of my pieces, it became like a very key way to communicate an idea or communicate an emotion. I don't know how much I'm going to share on that, because that's another thing about it, is it became very special to those who I did share it with. It really meant a special bond, whether or not they knew it. It became something that was important to me, and therefore those that I shared it with were special in that way, that they could know that kind of stuff. Kind of leaving you guys with nothing, so I'll probably try to share one and leave this alone for a while. Maybe continue it into another video or something. Let's see. Looking up one of my newer stencils. So this one's one of my, oh wait, let me flip this that way you can see. That one's one of my most recent ones, and obviously ones like these, you can see the meaning a little bit more. That's why I'm more willing to share these, but still, nonetheless, it was an important part of me. And the key things to see in this is the time change to life, and the fact that it's a bomb. And basically, the idea behind this is that we're going to have to make choices all throughout life, and that they might not be the easiest ones. And the time period in which I made this really was a tough time for me, because I had a very tough time figuring out what I wanted to, which path I wanted to take, I guess, in certain decisions. And I was looking at it as though it were a bomb, and that I had to make a move no matter what, but that I was very anxious that I was making the wrong move, and that yeah, pretty much that. If you can't tell, these are very personal to me, so if I get a little bit blank on them, you'll know why, at least. You, as in like the two people that are watching this and have watched this far. So that's kind of sort of how I got into graffiti. After doing the first piece, the first one was kind of more of just like a I think the first one was my hands shaking and the fingers crossed, and ones like those are a little bit more simplistic, I guess. But as I was able to draw special characteristics out of them and find stuff that I liked in my graffiti, I was very much more empowered to do more. And that's how I'm doing this now. So let's see. Can't really check the time on the GoPro. By the way, I apologize for the super whack camera angle. It's probably off right now, to be honest. For this little thingy right there, it's mounted on like a stick with duct tape, because it's super ghetto. But it works, so hey, can't complain. Excuse me. So, continuing on with graffiti, with certain people, it became something where, like at the beginning, nobody knew about it having meaning. I mean, I'm sure people looked at it and kind of maybe second guessed it, wondered if, that boy was drawing giraffes, not because a giraffe was cool, because it really seemed that there wasn't any solid motif behind any of it, and that it was like kind of random, and that wasn't me, and anybody that was close enough would probably kind of second guess that. But I ended up sharing eventually with one person at the start, and to be able to now turn the one thing that became so symbolic and so hidden, and have everybody else look at it in one way, and then have somebody that knew it also, was really cool to be able to do that. And at the same time, it became really cool to be able to have it as something that was special, and became a very strong connection point and a very strong communication tool. And I think that's pretty much all I can talk about, because that's it. So as I draw closer to finishing this up, don't know what else to tell you. So I'll go over the rest of the techniques. Implied lines, again, are stuff like this. Another example would be in the bomb, you just kind of get the idea that this finishes off